Hello, we are live in the Facebook and we're bringing you awareness today around grief. What a topic. But grief, it can affect us in different ways, and we've all got a story and a journey to tell you, and we're going to offer some tips and solutions throughout that. You'll be able to pick up a few things of what we did to benefit ourselves through grief. Now, grief can come in more than one way. It can come in a situation where it becomes about losing your loved ones or prepping for your loved ones or your friends and family as well. So who'd like to go first and talk about grief? I mean, I've lost both of my parents. I lost my uncle too. In the comparisons of watching first my father, who ended up getting cancer, watching that journey was very hard. And something for your first time of watching someone slip away is very difficult. And then it makes you look at what life is about within reason. The first, losing life, is difficult. Second time, then you lose someone close to you, is even more difficult. But actually, you are a little bit more. It's never easy. It's never easy because what you're losing is someone to talk to that you once had to talk to. So there are different aspects of grief that we're going to discuss throughout the world, throughout this live. So who'd like to go first and how they manage to cope with grief?
All right, I'll be the guinea pig then. Just to let you know, I'm Jean-Louis Delhomme. Everyone knows me as JD, founder of JDA Fitness Lifestyle. Right, as a lot of you might know, I'm going to talk about grief in two ways, and I think some grief comes in delayed reaction, because sometimes when something happens on the day, it doesn't hit you 2 years later, and then I feel grief, depending on the person, depending on the situation, it affects you in a different way. And I think Adrian would relate to that because being ex-force police force himself, being in the army, I've lost countless of friends where I've seen them killed in front of me. But when you're there, not only that, you get grief when you see other death, when you see other tragedy and horrors that you see. And on the day, because when you're in the army, and I think I've spoke about this before, you have to detach yourself. You have to move yourself away from reality. And there's times when I've been there and I've seen death, seen bodies, crisps and dries, people's head and everything on the floor. When you're there, without sounding crude, we take the mickey. We laugh at it because, from an outside looking in, they'll say, how can you've got no soul, you don't care and everything. But we have to do that to detach ourselves from reality. But years down the line, and I think a lot with my mental health, that's the issue with PTSD, it comes back and haunts you. You have nightmares, you have flashback. You go back to your lost ones then. No, you should have reacted. And I think it comes with age as well, because when I joined, I was 18, still naive, still young. And because of how things happen then, there's things I can't deal with it till now. I've seen blood, I've seen everything. Now I can't even watch Casualty in the whole big city because I have flashback. Don't like going to fireworks, I have flashback. And that's, for me, is a form of grief. But that's then. And then recently, I mean, I lost my godparents, which they brought me up. I still grieve over them. I still have memories. But recently, I lost my mother-in-law. And for some reason, with everything that's happened, with all the grief that I've dealt with, somehow this seems to be the hardest one because it was out of the blue. In the army, you know what you sign up to. You know, you go into war, you got those expectations. But when you know someone that's strong will, she was in a good age, but she was like, she was as strong as a ox, and it's the shock of not planning. It's the shock thing, and that's what sometimes And for me, it was hard because even though I've got my own mother, she was more of a mother to me, and I was really close to her, and that probably hit me harder than the friends and family that I've lost in the past. But I feel grief, it deals with it in a different way, and I think the only way I've learned I mean, obviously in the army, I've learned to detach myself. You have mechanism to forget and everything, but as I got older, I've done it for me. It's through my faith. I'm a Christian, and I do it for prayer. And I think everything I've gone through, I've done it through my faith, and that's what's got me to handle grief, and that's through the power of prayer. And that's what I do for me. It's not for everyone, but this is what I believe. So that's how I deal with it.
Did you stop doing something for yourself when you were grieving, going through these emotions? Did you stop doing? Did you return back to bed? Did you stop? Was there anything that you stopped doing for yourself as a way of, you know what, I can't deal with this?
I mean, the thing is, and I think Adrian again would relate to this. I think from a bloke's point of view, it's the same thing when I think the other day we was talking about emotion. I mean, it's a hard one because as a man, you learn not to show that. You learn not to show that side. You can't cry. You can't think it. So handling grief, because you can't handle that, it's a lot harder. I mean, I'll give you an example. I remember back when I was back at school, our dinner lady lost a son through leukemia, and we had a service, a memorial, in an assembly, and I remember her bawling and crying. She's Greek, a Greek woman, but I think in that culture, they used to get the passion out. They used to release everything, and a lot of us, we all looked at her when she was crying and making all, as far as we're concerned, she's making a scene. But that's her way. But the week after, she was like, nothing has happened. But looking back on that now, I'm feeling, well, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could just go up in the top of the hill, scream, let it all out, cry, because then it wouldn't bottle up as much. And I still, up to today, I find ways to manage it, but learning to get that release out of you, as a bloke, it's hard because you're so conditioned to just keep it bottled up. And this is why I do what I do, because I find other avenues to release my anger, my grief. I find other ways. But I wish I could be in a certain person to go top of a hill, scream to the top of my voice, have a good cry, and it's all done. It's like a kettle. But to me, that's a skill, and that's just way a mindset people learn.
Skill. Go ahead, Intelligence.
Yeah, I do agree with what JD has said. I think for me, being an ex-police officer, a lot of pressure was placed on me. So you have to worry about other people's emotions and grief, as it were. So first of all, let me start off by saying that I personally haven't experienced the loss of a very close family member like you have, Kerry. So I don't have that sense of profound grief, if that makes sense. But I have lost friends in the past, friends who, as a younger man, were very dear friends, but as we've all got older, we now live at different parts of the country. I might speak to my brother, for argument's sake, once a month, and he'll say, oh, did you hear that Joe Bloggs died? Really? When? Last year. Oh, right, you forgot to tell me that, like 6 months later. So there's a slight bit of detachment. But more on a professional level, being in the police force in particular, I spent a lot of time witnessing other people's grief. So for argument's sake, somebody dies for a road traffic collision, or someone's been struck by a train, or somebody's been murdered, or something bad has happened to somebody where their life has been lost. It was often, as well as my other colleagues, my job to go and what is described as called a death message. where you go and you break the news to the family members, and it's very, very difficult indeed to do that. If I can give you a brief example, we all get up every morning. We say, I'll be back in a minute, love. I'm just going to go and get a pint of milk. And you could be hit by a bus and never come back. And, you know, people's reaction when they see you turn up at the door is quite difficult. Some people fall to the floor, like what JD said. Some people are in complete shock. They don't take it on board. One of the things that is very, very, very difficult when you are a police officer is trying not to tell the person that you're speaking to what actually happened to their loved ones, because that can come back at a later date to, it's not that you're trying to hide information, you want to be clear on the facts. So what I'm trying to say is that if somebody dies, you know, this afternoon at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if you can identify that person and their next of kin and so on and so forth, the officers who go to the scene of where the deceased person is should not be the officers who then go, as we say, and deliver the death message. Because it's very easy to say, oh, you know, he or she had on these shoes, or we found this on the body, is this his, is this hers? You know, so it's a very difficult situation to be in. So as well as that, for the person doing the death message, it's very awkward. I tried to avoid it where I possibly could, but there were many times where I couldn't avoid it, and I would get a call from my superior officers, can you go to this house and deliver a death message? And it's as black and white as that. And very difficult, you know. I've been to a house where a young lady was there, her partner was killed after being struck by a train, and the children are there. What's wrong, mummy? What's happened to daddy? And then, you know, and you then have to try to talk about, oh, we have family liaison officers who then come in and do the real critical stuff with the family, and that's really important as well. So not easy at all. I think I've only had one situation where I've gone to deliver a death message, and myself and my colleague were invited in by the person, and they sat down and said to us, you know, we were expecting this, our son or whatever he was at the time suffered mental health, and we'd had a lifetime of him putting himself in danger where his life could have been lost, and this time it's happened. So it's as if they had prepared themselves for that moment, and that was the one time that that bad news situation, if I could put it like that, was palatable, you know. And just for our guests who are not here in the UK with us, there was a case, I believe, in the very early 90s where police officers went to the scene of a road traffic accident, found the driver deceased, did what they could, ambulance and all the rest of it came and done their thing, and then those same officers went to the gentleman's house to deliver the death message, and it caused a big ruckus. There was lots of government involvement because the police officers turned up with blood on their shirt collar and dirty clothes. Yeah, it's a very serious business. You know, the General and Jay again will back me up. You're supposed to change into your, if I can put it, your Sunday best to go to somebody's house to do such things, and these officers didn't. And as a result of that, by the time I joined the police, there is clear standards on how you should act, you know, when you're interacting with families, you know, dealing with grief.
Thank you. Thank you. It is never, I don't think you ever prepare yourself. I don't think you can actually be prepared for news. I think it's more regret somewhere along the line. Some things are regret. I wish I had said this. I wish I had enough time. I wish I had never said those last words. That's the last thing that I said to them. You know, there's a lot of regret that comes with it. There's not enough time, not enough preparation, and that's the horrible part about it. I wouldn't have wanted to been in your shoes delivering a message about the deceased. That must be very difficult within itself. And again, you see, even though that may not have been your relative, the fact that you're watching someone receiving that news must be traumatic as well for you who gets the news.
Of course.
Because then you've got that image, and then you've got that image in your head of visualize and things like that, and it cannot be comfortable.
No, it's not pleasant at all. The best, what I could say, what you could do is to try to be as dignified as you possibly could or can, and treat whoever you're speaking to with as much dignity and respect as you possibly can. And it, you know, it's not like saying, oh, you know, we've just found your car stolen, make a report at the police station tomorrow morning and we'll get it back for you. It's nothing like that. You just can't knock on the door 2 minutes and walk away. You have to be prepared to, you know, and again, you've found somebody deceased, you found a next of kin, you don't know what state the next of kin is in. For argument's sake, the next of kin could be bedridden or may have some sort of impairment, you know, that you can't then convey that serious message to them. So it's not just a case of just turning up and knocking on the door, you know.
Thank you. Lou, ZOLEE and Nikola, thank you for coming today, guys, on here to give us your opinion of what you want to say around this topic. And we will get down to different measures of this grief and how to internalize it in a little bit. And we did come on Facebook a little bit late, and I forgot to press the button, but better late than never. The topic is grief. All right. So Lou or Nikola or ZOLEE, which you would like to go next? That would go ahead, please. ZOLEE, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, I think I've encountered way too many encounters of grief for my 48 years. Mostly friends, unfortunately, whether it be accidents or suicides, taking their lives. Yeah, so way too many. One different scenario of grief that I've encountered was with my natural birth father. So my mum and him split when I was about 2 years old, which, you know, it happens. You know, I never knew him. I never had a relationship with him. But as I grew older, I've got an amazing, I just want to say I do have an amazing stepfather, and, you know, this is no disrespect to him. But as I got older and hearing stories about my dad, and I always had in the back of my mind that one day I would like to try and find him and you know, regain and try and build a relationship. Now, he has two sons before me, so they're my half brothers, and one of them was quite famous cricket player. So I used to follow him because that was my little 15 minutes of fame. Yeah, I've got a famous, you know, a brother who plays cricket, and I used to follow him back in the days. It was on teletext. I'm showing my age now. And I remember sitting watching the results on the teletext, and it flashed up, tragedy strikes Elaine. Well, Elaine's my surname, and that's my brother's surname. And I was thinking, oh, what's he done? He's got hit with a cricket ball, or he's broken his hand. And reading further down, it said, tragedy strikes Elaine. He's had to leave the world tour because his father has died in a car accident. And I was reading that, and I was like, hold on, but that's my dad. And it was the weirdest thing, because I didn't know what to do. you know, I was obviously upset because it was my dad, but there was no real pain because we never had a relationship. So that's one kind of weird grief for me, because yeah, I've grieved because I never had the chance to meet him. You know, that's one thing I always wanted to do, but now I'm never going to get that chance. So that's that side of my thing now, that is I have to go to Barbados and obviously pay my respects. I'll get there one day. If COVID allows me, I will get there. But yeah, so that's one aspect of grief. And I think the biggest one for me was probably my eldest daughter losing her father. Again, another relationship breakup. We split when she was 3, and he had developed a drinking problem, not coped very well with our breakup. But you know, we maintained a relationship for our daughter, and he had access and visitations, and had her every weekend, and they had a beautiful relationship. But his alcoholism got the better of him, and then it discovered that he had a heart defect, and he got really ill. He had a heart operation, but he couldn't cope with it all. He couldn't cope with the illness, he couldn't cope with the drinking, and so he committed suicide. He took an overdose. And the hardest bit for me, although we was in a relationship for 10 years, so the grief was hard for me, but the worst bit was the grief that my daughter was going through.
Yeah.
That was my biggest feeling of grief. Because, yeah, how do you cope? How do you deal with seeing someone that you love and care for so much in so much pain, and there's nothing you can do?
What kind of things did you do to honour the memories, or how did you cope? Because you're still here, you're looking vibrant, you look lovely, you're on point with everything you're doing. It feels to me that you're living. So what things did you do to help your daughter through this grieving process, help the family and yourself?
I can't actually pinpoint things. There wasn't anything that I set out to do apart from just be there. Mm-hmm. You know, if she needed an outlet, if she needed someone to talk to, it was quite difficult. She was a teenager. They know best. They want to do whatever they want to do and deal with it their own way. We weren't actually living with each other at the time either. So, you know, it was quite difficult, because you don't want to impose too much, but you don't want to stand back too much either. So it was finding that common ground to let her know, I'm here, but I'm not going to keep, you know, sort of bugging you and harassing you and asking you if you're okay, because sometimes that can get you pushed further away. And she's amazing. Right now, she's 27. She's doing absolutely amazing things. She's a young, strong woman. And I think what helped me also was I had other children that I had to focus on. So that was where my outlet came into it. You know, I cried adverts. I cry the Andrex advert at Christmas and things like that. I'm an emotional wreck when it comes to, you know, things like that. So as JD was saying, you know, as a man, you know, it's hard for them to express. I don't have that issue. I'm not so much of a talker when it comes to my own feelings. I can listen to other people all day. You can talk to me and I'll give you advice, and sometimes I'm not even sure where that advice comes from, but you know, it's advice that comes from the soul, from the heart. So, you know, that's how I deal. I listen, and then I keep busy, a bit like JD. I can't sit still. I have to find something to plough myself into.
So that sounds like a distraction technique, and keep occupied. It helps the process, the healing process.
Definitely.
Well, on that, what was the message you take out of all of this for you? What was the importance now that this has happened? So what's the statement to your life and your children's life when confronting what is the bold statement about your life now?
What's the bold statement about my life when confronting grief? It's quite sad, I feel, for myself, because there's been so much of it. Like, for someone of my age and the amount of friends that I have lost, I don't want to say that I've become
Numb.
Yeah, like a bit hardened to it.
Yeah.
Like, you hear it, it shocks you, you're upset, you get on. You know, you move on. And I don't know whether that's because I don't want it to take a hold of me and make me weak, so that's how I deal with it. But I would say that, you know, still talk, even if it's a little, still talk to somebody. Yeah, I just embrace it and remember what they had, remember what they gave, remember their good things, and nothing you can do. Keep going, because it's not just about me. You know what? It's probably because of my children, because I'm not sure that if I didn't have them, that I would actually be that strong, because I would be allowed to sit in my bed for days and cry. I wouldn't have to get up and get dressed and do what I have to do. So maybe that's what gives me the strength, is my kids.
Yeah. And I think that's a great example.
Yeah.
We have lost a lot of people. You think every time you hear it. Yeah, I can relate to what you're saying. You go a little bit numb to it. Yeah, it's a shock. What can you do about it? Now, this is a test that I always say. When I hear people saying, oh, I've just lost someone, and they start going into that depression, what I then feel personally is that they're losing time. And that time to enjoy life, I know it's a shock. But we always say that our loved ones, or those that have passed, would only want the best for us and wouldn't want to waste or want us to waste the opportunity. So why is it that so many people do the opposite? But then again, depends how many times they've gone and experienced grief, how many times they've been through it, heard about it, etc. So I think that's what makes it difficult. We all deal with it in our own way. Thank you, Lou. Nikola and ZOLEE, please elaborate.
Hello, everybody. My name's Nikola. I'm a psychotherapist, and so I come up against grief in my everyday work, and I've seen a lot of grief with regards to children that I've worked with that have committed suicide. Since working with the NHS for 10 years, you see it, you witness it, you have cases and clients that come to you with a rack sheet of things that have happened to them before, and we realise that the grief that people have experienced years ago hasn't been addressed till now. And so when I'm seeing a client and that is in the past, the question is to really unfold what is their relationship with grief and loss and death. And I think one of the fundamental things for me as a clinician is to find out, what is that relationship with grief, loss and death? What has it been? Because that relationship with it, and when I say relationship, I mean the understanding of what it is. How does that impact them physically, mentally, and psychologically? Where is their stance on it? Because like you're saying, Eloise, you know, people moving to it happens, that's what happens, we get on, we move on. What JD spoke of, it really I was writing notes while you were speaking. So it's to find out, what is it? What is loss? Loss isn't just death. Loss is anything that you've given up personally that you was attached to. So that could be a job, a relationship, you know, going from marriage to being single. You have to go through a grieving process of what life was before. And the impact of loss and grief, despite whether it's a job, whether it's a partner, whether it's a child, whether it's a grandparent, whether it's moving from the family home. Simple things. You are grieving what was once before. And it is how you do that is the key thing. The getting on and moving on. Have we skipped a few processes along the way that needed some time and attention? How are we now doing the whole dressed up grief look? Because we know what dressed up grief looks like. We go to a funeral, we've had the 9 night, like you've had the wake. So in Canada, I went to a wake for the first time in Canada. Culturally, it is so different. It was like I had to go, okay, in the movies, everyone walks with a piece of cake. So I turned up to a wake during COVID with a piece of cake. No one's taking the cake because it's COVID, but however, I felt inadequate, and I've dealt with grief all the time. So I'm like, okay, what do I can't take a bottle of wine because it might not be, may not be at a place of celebration. We all know that culturally in the Caribbean, that is like a week, a 9 nights of celebration of that person's life. To come to terms, to hear stories, to find an attachment that they can hold on to say, they've gone, but I'm holding on to that story. Mm-hmm. And so that process in different cultures is there for a reason. A wake is there for a reason. It is allowing people to accept, acknowledge, process, and come to terms that we are going to come to a funeral day. That's what it's coming. You'll never come to terms that they're no longer here. That will always be, how do I adjust to the fact that this person's no longer here? Everything is about adjustment and how we relate to that process. So we have the funeral. So this is the day of letting go. There is a I can't find the word. There is a cathartic process in grief that you get to a point, and everything culturally is acceptable. Is that person that is grieving uncontrollably? It is acceptable. It isn't referred to as mental health. It isn't referred to. Some people in some cultures invite grievers to the graveside so they can encourage the process of grief. That was a good funeral, and it's based on the act of grief outpouring. Now, that may not fit some people and that may not fit other people, but in some cultures, that is culturally acceptable. Then people leave and people who are grieving are left. And people have to find a way of, how do I then relate? And it comes back to what you said, Louise, I just wanted to know that I was here. I wanted to stop asking, is she okay? Trust me, if you don't ask if you're okay, no one cares about me now. Because we've just gone through a whole, okay, I've got the news, I'm coming to terms, I'm grieving, I'm burying, and now what's life left for me? And so it is important that we provide the services and the support straight after a funeral process, because that is the bit that people don't know how to respond to. And so what grief looks like can look like anger, regret, guilt, resentment, because if there is a close relationship between suicide and anger and regret and resentment as to, why have you left me with this? Yeah. And so we need to allow people, whether suicide or whether ill health or out of the blue, we need to allow people the space to be. And I'm one that always says, be kind. Grief creates family division. It creates conflict. It can create unity. It can create a longer lasting attachment to family members that you've never met in the past. The question is, we need to acknowledge and accept that the level of anger that comes out of grief is so profound that people who haven't grieved don't know the level, or haven't allowed themselves to feel that anger. Why did you leave me now with a child to live and support? And even though you played that role, I now have to pick up that role. I now have to deal with the stuff that's left behind. Anger all of the other type of feelings. But one of the main things I want to point out today is that the eulogy process, when I lost my grandmother, and when I lost my grandmother, we just felt that she was going to live forever. That's that classic granddaughter, grandparent. They're going to live forever and ever, amen. And then they die and they pass, and we get caught up in they're not here no more. And as a responsibility to write a eulogy for a grandmother that I thought she was always 83, is 93. I'm thinking, we've always said my grandmother's 80, because we don't believe they're going to actually get to that. So when I'm writing a eulogy, I'm writing and I'm collecting stories about her life and what she's achieved and what she set out to have as a young child. And suddenly I realized how selfish I felt about grieving so dramatically for a person that has lived such a full life. They have grown up in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, fulfilled their passion to come to England, responded to the news article saying, we're inviting you after the Second World War to rebuild Britain. And here she is, done that, been there, bought a house, raised kids, bought a house back in the Caribbean, moved back home, and had the chance to live in her own home in the Caribbean that she has built in a pretty affluent area. But the reality is that the checkpoint was, why am I feeling so selfish? Once I'd written the eulogy, I had to recognize that this is a celebration of life. This is an acknowledgement of what you could do with the years that have been blessed and given to you. Despite the fact that you've left me, I had to come to terms with, I really need to be celebrating this person rather than mourning this person. And so that comes the understanding of why the wait was important, why the funeral burial process is important, and why the eulogy that is written is hopefully going to encapsulate everything that the person is, was, and has left behind. And so that is one of the processes that I've been through. I think we all need to also recognize that for children, grief and loss is very different. We think that we can explain grief, talk grief out. How do we put words to grief that we still feeling anger, resentful, and yet the public society says you should be a humble wife grieving, you should be a brother that has got the rest of the backbone of the family, when you're not feeling that. I don't feel like the father, the archetype of the family. I feel I need to grieve. And how do we not allow ourselves just to be where we are because of the needs that we each individually have? But for kids, I think it saddens me a lot when I work quite a lot with kids and children and families for the National Health Service. Now in Canada, I work with kids, but it's always important to allow kids to grieve and accept that the process needs to be as long as it needs to be. Grief is never addressed today, tomorrow. Grief and the acknowledgement of needing to grieve a bit more can happen years down the line. And I think we need to allow and reflect and check in and ask and get the children to create what grief looks like, because they can't find the words to say that I shouldn't feel, I've got these feelings and I can't tell the world that I'm mad at my dad. I'm crazy at my sister. Because we had things we left things undone. And they're the whole thing, they're the things that children really have a hard time to come to terms with. And I often use fairy tales. I was speaking to ZOLEE about fairy tales, and I was saying, we're not taught, drama therapy isn't about doing acting. It really is looking at the themes and the tools that drama can and the arts can provide. And so when children enter into grief therapy with myself, I am giving them their stories that they've read. When we dissect fairy tales for a child, we talk about loss and abandonment, because with loss comes abandonment, comes the I don't have anymore. What do I then do? How do I live the rest of my life now? And there is a feeling of abandonment, and depression is a close friend with grief. And so we need to be able to give people the tools in order to help them explain and express really what's going on for them. So through fairy tales, I've utilized, there's Hansel and Gretel for neglect. and abandonment. There's Cinderella for sibling rivalry. There is the real Princess and the Pea. You know, when we're talking about siblings and identity, that's classic. Who am I now? My parents are no longer here. You know, and so there are things, there's so many different ways we can work with people. And in my practice, that's what we try and do, is give them the tools that they can express what is unthinkable without using words and with words. So yeah, grief can take on a whole different thing. And I think it is very much about knowing that bereavement and grief isn't straight after. It can be the following year. It can be, because we have so much to deal with. And so, I hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm so could elaborate on a lot of that when it comes to those loved ones, and I do want to provide those tips. But let's go to ZOLEE now, and then at the end of it, I'm going to provide a few things and solutions, things that you can do. So ZOLEE, welcome from the US of A, and Nicole,
North Carolina, right?
Great.
Sending love.
Thank you.
An interesting topic, and sort of at a loss at the same time not. My perspective is I haven't lost in the real grief from parents, or my parents are still living, put it like that. I'll correct myself. They're still living, and put it here from, this is my perspective. And Nikola hit on it. Everyone has. But it really honed when you said the abandonment, and you addressed it. Could be from relationships, divorced, now single. It could be living in another country from your birth country, all kinds of things. Mine, personally, I'm all of those things. Divorced, married now, second marriage, 25 years in to my second marriage, so I'm good. I went through the grieving on the first, and that's another topic about that, would be rather interesting. I was married to a gay man, and I still grieved when it was over. So that's a whole nother topic.
Oh, yeah.
It is. But now I would love to address the fact that my parents' birth family, as a family of 4, they are all still living.
Wow.
Mother, father, and sibling. I refer to as mother, father, and sibling. I struggled with, do I call you parents? I struggled with calling you sister. I call you my sibling, I acknowledge that. You're my parents, I acknowledge that. What's very painful, and is a continuous grief that I still experience and allow myself to experience, the willfulness. And I receive it, oftentimes perceive it as rejection. It's painful, it's hurtful. And then I allow myself to experience whatever it is emotionally I'm experiencing. I talk about it. And if I want to cry, I cry. I allow myself that. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter anymore. I am at ease with and at peace with. Now, being at ease with, not angry about, doesn't mean it doesn't hurt me any less. I recognize it's still painful. And it rears its head on those moments because I have a daughter, I have one daughter. She does not understand or know what it would be like to have familial relationship, mother, grandmother, grandfather. So it's those types of losses that I can grieve for her. No, she doesn't miss what she's never had, so they say. But she doesn't know what it's like to have like a real grandmother, a grandfather. So when you're around peers, friends, and family talking about grandparents or we're visiting, and our nucleus family is 3 people. Mm-hmm. So I'm having to explain and understand, and she's grown, knows that's not natural, nor is it normal to just have your circle 3 people. Mm-hmm. So we've been able to include other persons. So I could say, well, there's a Aunt KERRY now and Aunt Nikola. And those kinds of things, and we bring and we're very engaging and receptive of people. But the grief, it's very real, and until I was able to call it what it was, the fact that I was grieving the loss of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
accepted that. It took a long time for me to acknowledge that. I wasn't even aware that's what was going on. And so once I came and wrapped my mind around that, came to some terms with that, it was then that I could say my mother, my father,
Mm-hmm.
or my sibling. Will I invite you in my space? No. Will I disrespect you? No. But I respect myself more because of the willfulness is your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect that. Do I have to agree with it? No, but I accept it. And I'm more interested at this point now to take care of my mental health at all costs. It has come at an enormous price. It has come at an enormous price. Because I don't have them. I mean, they're here. They won't take a phone call. They won't receive you. So at what point, then you have to come to a point when I've done all that I know to do, I've done. Then you just have to be at peace with is their choice.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm at a place now, if you want to ever embrace or come in, I welcome you in my space, provided you don't hurt, harm any of us, emotionally or physically. I had a sibling, I hadn't seen her in, I want to say about 12 years. And I heard a knocking on my front door. And I'm the person who's usually not dressed, but I'm mouthy. Knock, knock on the front door. I put something, I said, I'm good, I'll handle them, just need to go. And it was my sibling. She didn't know how to receive, but she put her son, I hadn't seen, but I recognized, it was her son. And I invited her in. She didn't know how to receive me. And the first thing she could say to me, oh, you're wearing your hair natural like that?
Great. Yeah.
I'm like, yes, darling, I am. I sure am. And then it was this strange, the oddest thing ever. She never mentioned my parents. She never mentioned their name. She never asked, never inquired, never said. It was this unspoken, that's something you don't talk about. You don't mention. They're still living. They live with one another. Well, at least not near to one another. Like, can I know that I know their names, and so I have a thing now to be called by my name, ZOLEE. I like to hear my name, ZOLEE. I don't want to be her Dr. Robinson. I don't want to hear mom or friend. It's ZOLEE. Can someone call me ZOLEE, please? Because you don't get called that. You get called so many other things. And then, like, you don't hear the name Delina and Gerald. You don't hear their names mentioned anymore. I'm like, they're living. And that's her sibling. And I remember sitting off, and then it was this, she always had to have somebody with her. Like, she had her son, then she called up a friend, then she called up another friend. I'm like, well, can we two get together at any point? Because I'm not going to bite you. It's 12 years. You came, I invited you in. I received you. Broke bread, had dinner, and still was nothing, no conversation about anything. I'm like, okay, I'll meet you. This is where you're at. I'll meet you here. I get it. So I grieved the loss of a friendship relationship with a sibling. We're 10 months apart. We're 10 months apart. So I grieve indeed, but these are persons that are still living. And you hear about, you see pictures of them. Then you have people saying, but you should speak. I'm like, don't judge me, darling. Don't do that. I'm not judging you. Live your life and I'm living mine. But I'm just, so for me, grief is still, I still deal with it. And I allow it to rear its head. I do. It's not going to make me bitter anymore. It's not going to make me angry anymore. Because I was mad. And what I realized, because I was hurt. It's just a willfulness. I'm like, I'm your daughter, you birthed me. What could I have possibly said or done that you just took? What? Now that I have a daughter. So I ever told her, so my little child, there's nothing that you could say, nothing that you could do. I'll always love you. I want you to know that. Because I never felt that. I still don't. But I don't dwell on it. But of course it rears its head. And how did it rear his head? Trying to keep all that emotion. I put on 200 pounds. How the hell do I go from 140 pounds to 355 pounds? and still have to mask around like, oh, I'm good, smiling. You know what I mean? All that fakeness, because it's masking a deep hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a deep hurt. And then you start actualizing what people will call you.
Mm-hmm.
So I grieved all of that. But darlings, know that I have all this at this point now. I snatched it all back.
Yes.
So, oh yeah. So now you don't have that kind of power over me anymore. It's that type of coming to terms with, acknowledging, and honey, when I'm ready to cry, I just cry. And no shame in my game. Why do we have to say like we have to be an issue? It's not weakness. It's how I feel at a moment. As the universe has told me, when it rains, darling, it rains. Sometimes I see it pour hard, thunderstorm. The universe is disruptive sometimes. I'm like, well, why can't I be? And then the next day is just as sunny and bright. The wind is, birds out chirping. I'm like, well, yes, thank you. I'm here. I receive that. So to me, that's how the universe is teaching me. I can go cry, snap off if I feel like it. Sometimes you got to do that, clean it up.
Yeah.
Clean it up and pack it away.
Yeah.
And then you have chance to blossom and bloom and just bloom in your own way. You know, and so that's it. Go ahead, Nikola.
I totally. I hear you, girl. That's my little American bit, or that's my little Canadian bit. I hear you, girl. No, but the thing is, I think you touched on some points. I think when you're delivering, when Adrian talks of delivering the message,
yes,
I think there is processes. There is that shock and disbelief. Then there is that kind of silence and stillness, as in, what do I do? There is a silence. And it's hard to explain what that silence is, but it's about when you hear it, it's like either the world's spinning or it's fast, but there is a moment where there is stillness and there is silence. And then comes the grief, and then comes the guilt, and then comes the anger. And then after the anger, you're left with, well, how angry can I get?
Right.
Because the reality is, in your anger, that could be 3 weeks of anger. That could be a month of anger. That could be years of anger.
Yes.
But you're still going to work and you're still raising children. You're still doing your thing. But the reality is, then comes the helplessness, because you can't change time. And that is the whole coming to terms and finding the acceptance that there is very little all this behavior can change. But I think we've got to allow ourselves to be with ourselves.
Yes.
Men have to cry. Encourage it. Let it go. Because while you don't cry, you're like this. Because it's stacking. It just takes the wrong person, and suddenly you used my cup at work turns into fireworks. You know. So acceptance is the process. Yes to Eugene.
Jay. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you, ZOLEE. But go ahead, Jay. In relation.
I think, and I don't know what the statistic is, and on a ratio, I think there's men ends up more, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is a feeling that men ends up more in mental home, or you get more suicide from men than women because they can't process that grief. And I think that's a big issue. I used to have 3 years ago, I lost my dog. I had a dog for 15 years, and I still grieve over my dog. You tell people that not animal lovers, oh, it's only a dog, but to you, it's not as part of the family. But I've had, and I think when you go to certain countries like Nikki was talking about, or certain cultures, and is that you go to certain cultures where you get like Mediterranean or something like that, where men just pour it out.
Yeah.
And with the use of passion, they seem to be more happier. But I find it in like places like this country, for example, when you're brought up to bottle things up, I think men ends up with more mental health issues because you bottle it in. It's not natural. And up to today, I still struggle with that. There's times I wish I could build it up, but sometimes you just condition. I mean, 48 years, 49 this year. I'm still conditioned to be, you can't let that out. And I wish I could.
Can I say, Kerry, just on the back of what Jay has just said, in my time in the police, I would say 95% of the suicide scenes that I attended were male. Very seldom were they female. I can think of only maybe 3 or 4 that were clearly female, but whether that's scientific or not, I don't know, but it just kind of, something Jay just said, triggered that memory. I don't remember seeing that many females take their own life. The other point that he raised about men bottling things up, I do think it starts at home, from a man's point of view, with your own father. You know, touch wood, I still have my father, but I think I only ever saw my dad cry once, and that was 40 years ago when he lost his own mother, who was back home in the West Indies, and I'm 47 years old myself now. So you can see, you know, in those 40 years, my father has been the person that has kept me straight and kept me upright. No emotion with nothing, you know, be strong, be firm, be harsh, you know. And I will say, because I do champion that way of going forward. However, with my own son, who's fast approaching 17 years old, I try to soften that exterior, if I can put it like that, to let him know that if you have a problem, whatever that problem is, come to me with it and talk to me about it, and I will do my effort best to try to point you or to steer you, whatever it is you require to help you out. I will do that. And I felt that growing up with that harshness that Jay refers to, I couldn't do that with my own father. Now, I will say I never tried, because the harshness is there. Stand up straight. What you crying for? You know, girls cry. Boys don't cry. What you crying for? You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And I think the world, as we all develop, the world is changing. Things that I personally would have shunned as a younger man in my 20s now, I'm having to realize that, you know, my son could come home and say certain things to me that might make me think twice, that I'm gonna have to embrace that, you know? So I always, where I can, try to create, you know, an avenue for him to feel safe. Again, on the topic of grief, a classic example of that is probably 5 years back now. He lost his grandfather on his mother's side, you know, and that was difficult for me for 2 reasons, because it wasn't my father, but you know, and his mum and I are no longer together, so we live separate lives. But I still had to be inclusive and watch his mini grief and try to explain to him, you know, I have personally fond memories of your grandfather. He was a very nice man. He took me under his wing when I first met your mum, and so on and so forth. And, you know, think about, you know, all the positive things. And luckily for my son, he remembers enough of his grandmother and father on that side. And, you know, as I said earlier, my parents are still here. So he's had quite a rewarding life when it comes to having the senior citizens, if I can put it like that, in his life.
Thank you. ZOLEE, thank you very much. And guys, thank you for your comments. I missed a little bit earlier in getting out my information earlier about this grief. Watching my father die was the most hardest thing ever, most traumatic thing ever. But out of that lesson, I think, you know, when they delivered the news, oh, your dad's only got so much to live, you don't know what to do with yourself. The first thing that I did when I got that that message with my mum and my sister in the kitchen, not the other children, but, you know, my mum says, your dad hasn't got long to live. He'll be dying in any day, you know, pretty much. What? Not my father. No, surely. And I already knew that something wasn't right, especially when they stopped walking and things like that. I already knew something wasn't right, but I'd never had a battle with cancer before. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like really angry at that word, you know, sometimes, and it can really rob the enjoyment. But what we did, the immediate thing is to take it out on yourself. That was what I done. I said, right, my dinner was cooked, and when that news come, right, I don't want it. And so the immediate thing was to take that out on myself and how I can control that situation. And I couldn't. So going on hunger strike wasn't going to work. You know, having a drink isn't going to help, is not helpful. And then, you know, you do want to scream. You do want to do this. No, why are you doing this to me? How long? So you're getting accustomed to something you've never been accustomed to before. So my dad goes, but all we could do was make him comfortable at the time before he went. What can I do? What are the skills that I have in me that I can help my father go to his resting place? You know, what can be more comfortable? I think I had this T-shirt of his, and I snotted all in it for days, and so I held on to this piece of T-shirt. I held on to a piece of hair. I thought that would be good for DNA, wouldn't it? No, I'm just kidding. But still, you know. So that was hard. But the wake and the family and the people that came to say goodbye and prep, that made it more palatable. But the final go is never going to be palatable because you can never get it back. And so I think the hardest part for me is watching my mother in the sorrow. What can I do to my mum? This is a long-term companion now. She's now longer not got this companion. She's never had to be on her own, although she's very independent, but she never really had to be on her own. So then I watched my mum suffer through the depression. So of course that catches on to me a little bit too, in the surroundings and everything else. And it is that grief that, you know, one thing we don't like to be around is depressed people. We think it's a waste of life. It's a waste of life sometimes when you've got an opportunity. So when people says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm grieving, I need time to heal, it's hard also to have to hear that, because you think, I want to help. You're taking it as a rejection. So you want to help, you want to heal, you want to solve the problem because you want your friend back quickly, or your relative back quickly, back to their old self. You don't want to see them self-destruct. So those were the avenues that I took. 5 years later, and I always have this, there's always a 5 years difference between loved ones, basically, who've been together for so long. There seems to be a pattern where, you know, a couple of years later, then my mother got that big C word. And I was just like, here we go. But you know what? I'm prepped now. It's not going to be easy, but I need to see what is it I can make your life easier. How do you want it? What is your, I use the word bucket list, or wish list, the things to do. And that made me, because and again, that happened to her brother. He ended up getting cancer as well. So it went from help that person to help this person to help that person. But the final part for me is, right, my mum's not around to see her own brother pass away. It's now left down to me. Oh, I've got to watch that. I sat beside that bed night for 5 days. And I've done everything that I could possibly do. Uncle, what is it that you want me to do? Who do you want me to contact? What do you want? I did everything possible. And I said to him, right, but I know that you helped my sister. Would you help me in this process of dying? So we became, okay, I didn't want to pander around it. I know it's hard, but there's no point in having two miserable people. So I said, okay, surely I will do whatever you want. So we wrote down a whole heap of list of things that we could do, what we could do for fun and adventure before you pass and stuff like that. I felt more contentment helping somebody through that grieving before they even left this world, helping him through with his departure. That made me deal with it a lot better. And then you've got to clean up their affairs and look after their house, you know, tidy up all of those things. So what you're doing is, as you're going through somebody's property, is, oh my God, memories, 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 memories. And I think that's the important part, is holding on to those great memories. And what was the last thing you did or said to somebody? You know, don't be going to sleep on an argument, or because you just don't know when someone's going to go. So you might have time to prep if you are given a diagnosis. But there are other times where I have then told my friend had passed away. My son lost his friend at a very young age, and the way he coped with grief it was very difficult as well, because it changed him. He then said, you know what, if I realize that life can go that quick, I'm going to have to live mine now. And I haven't got time for this. I need to travel. I need to do everything else. So he improvised and found the enjoyment out of life, rather than look at the depressing part of life. He tried to sort of take ownership of his life and his happiness through that depression. And I think that's what I try to do as well. How am I going to teach my children how not to be depressed and how to accept that in loving memory? It took me ages, where I would always go to my father's graveside every single day until I had a dream. And it was that dream. And if you believe in the other side, and you believe that they go somewhere, then hang on to those thoughts and know that they are watching you. And if they are watching you, they're going to feel really helpless from above, knowing that you're sitting there crying and disrupting your life and wasting precious time. I feel that there's nothing worse than a mother or parent feeling helpless for their loved ones. And I think it doesn't matter what age you are, you know, love is love, and appreciation of life is important. How we cope with grief is entirely up to one another. Allow your friends to be supportive. Allow your family to be supportive in the ways possible, but try to replace that sorrow with something joyful. Light a candle in loving memory, put on a favorite tune and dance around the house in loving memory. Life was about celebration, but we do know that it's very difficult, especially during COVID. You're hearing all of these things, which are triggers again. So I guess it's planning you. And I think behind the scenes, I think everybody's planning their departure in a sense, but they're trying to ignore it as well. Am I going to go? Am I not? Because I'd be the first to think, when COVID came, I thought we were all going to die, like in the next day or two. So did I have time to prep for that? You know? So what can you do immediately is enjoy the moment immediately as much as you can. I think each to their own. We all have our own experience. We all have our own grieving process. But what death has taught me is to live and to not waste life. That's what death has taught me. And then also the fact that I'm an ex I'm going to use that word. Once somebody has taken their life to suicide, which had been me in the past trying to take my life to suicide, I realized what a selfish act that really is. And it was painful, very painful. But when you hear people dying and that's kind of you were going to take your life without giving anybody a choice to say goodbye or answer any of the questions or honor the unheard. Sorry, I'm stuttering now. And you know, when people have got questions, I never got to ask them that. I never got to say sorry. I never got to do any of that. And that's what tugs on the heartstrings when people couldn't rescue or save you out of a situation. So my remit is, if you're struggling, if you are needing someone to talk to, if you look down in the bottom in this panel, you have professionals on board that we talk to people all the time. We're equipped to doing that, okay? All you need is an ear. And sometimes they might say, like we had Mosaic. Yes, was it yesterday? I think was it yesterday? Tuesday. We had Mosaic, creative healing. Again, hundreds, I think, is something, and the lady Dion had recommended that they take a picture and create something wonderful out of it. It's a memento in it. What does it mean to you? So it's the meaning of life, you know, and thinking about others through it. So we can lend an ear. We're here to support as much as we can. We're all human, and nobody's actually going to know how it feels but the receiver. Nikola Blair down the bottom is Act on It Therapies, as you rightly heard her say earlier. She deals with grief and people that are grieving, and that's what she's there for. She's offering her expertise. Maybe you don't want to speak out loud or private or at public or something like that. You don't have to. Very private. If you want a private therapy, you can reach Nicola. I'm sorry, I'm just going to call you Nikki. On Nikola Blair on Act On It Therapies. www.actonittherapies.co.uk, is it? .com. Okay, you can find that on the website. Please don't sit there, do nothing if you're suffering. A conversation and an ear can make all the difference in the world. You know, your parents, whether you like them or not, gave you life. Don't waste it. That's what I found out. Does anybody else want to elaborate on this and give any tips and tools or solutions for someone to how they can get through something nice, something pleasurable?
I'll provide something. So we have lost somebody, or we're feeling grief, whatever that might be to you. Yeah. The first thing that the person who's feeling the grief may not want to do, but what will happen is people want to fix it, and people want something to do. So that's always a challenge, because we can also become the pest that's not going away, that just keeps coming back, because we want to fix and make sure that you're okay. And like you said, Kerry, come back. But one of the strategies that I can't stress more, that friends don't stop asking, how are you doing today?
Yes.
If you're feeling, and if you hear fine, in psychotherapy we would say, well, what does fine, my therapist when I was in training would always ask me, what does fine look like? My clients don't give me fine no more, because they know I'm going to ask them to let's deconstruct what fine looks like. Because fine for me might look like one way. Fine for you might be, I'm fine, I got out of the bed this morning and I had breakfast. Thank my lucky stars, don't ask me to do nothing more than that. But then the reality is, so friends, keep asking. We need to, the person that's feeling grief needs to acknowledge that it's going to be awkward for people to support you or give you the answers during this time. So if you know that is going to be awkward for the receiver, try telling them that it's okay, you're doing fine. I know, it's okay. Just sit with me. Try and share with someone what you need for them. And if it is just a matter of, you know, many times I've said, I'm coming round and I'm coming to sit. In the meantime, I'm making tea and I'm making coffee and I'm taking away some of those responsibilities from you so that you don't have to think about it. So that's where you get, maybe culturally or what you see on the movies, everyone brings food. Because you know that you may not want to be looking after yourself, because the key things that, I wrote down the key things, the symptoms of grief. Is, first of all, please let's acknowledge what is grief and what is depression. Because somebody's grieving, they're not depressed, they're grieving. It's natural. It's a natural expression. If you're grieving and you find yourself laughing and you feel guilty for laughing, understand you're allowed. You're allowed. You're allowed to laugh at jokes. Let yourself off the hook. Grief does not look or have to look like doom and gloom. It can be, I'm enjoying myself too much and I feel guilty for the fact that I'm not breaking down like Mrs. Sue next door. And she wasn't even a relative, right? So fatigue, nausea, lower immune system, weight gain or weight loss, aches and pains and insomnia. They're classic grief symptoms. They're also classic depressive symptoms. Symptoms of depression. However, it's to determine what difference is. The other thing that you mentioned is, so seek out friends and family. People are going to feel awkward, and let them know that it's okay. Draw on your faith, your culture, and your religion. You know, JD, that as a man of faith, that it is of comfort, and all you're doing is seeking comfort. So culturally, you go back to what works. If you know that your mum used to do this whole candle shrine, you know, do a candle shrine. It might work for you. It might be play music as loud as you want, or it might be play music as quiet as you want. So do what brings you comfort. And ethnological therapy is simply intercultural therapy. If you were not from a Western society, I am not going to be discussing with you Western tools of coping. I am firstly, fundamentally, going to say, culturally, what would you see happen? Because we may not live it, but it's in our DNA and it's in our blood, and we've seen it and it's learned. And so let's do that. If it is about placing a place in your home, if you're Catholic, that has all of the iconic symbols, that's what you do. Whatever brings you comfort. Allow others to do something. Give people a job. People need to know that if my job is picking up the kids and plaiting their hair this week, that's my job. Allow us to enjoy that. We just want something to do. So take on a task, give tasks, delegate, and allow people to come in and take over for a period of time that is trying to offer you support. But also be able to express how you're feeling in the best way you know how, without clearing the house because you've had enough of people being in your house, because it's going to come that time. Try and have that, allow the time for allow people to support you and for you to walk away, express your feelings in a tangible way. Try still do your hobbies, try to do something that interests you. And if not, try let your friend let you join them, even if you don't do it anyway. Don't let people tell you how you feel what you feel. If you don't feel sad, you don't have to pretend to be sad. You can be happy. You can grieve tomorrow. You can feel bad, you can feel the guilt, you can give yourself a break. Plan ahead and manage your triggers. If you know that something's good, that if you learn to know how you cope and what your strategies are, and if you don't, you need to see someone like myself or someone in the group to work out what are the strategies that I can do to help me cope. Because that is therapy. Give me something, how do I get through this? Support me through this. And so it is about planning what people need to do when you feel a trigger is near. And that's learning your own behavior, learning your own mental health, and being able to manage your own mental health through the way. And look after yourself.
Yeah, I really do think that's some great advice. I mean, we could touch on other things. I mean, there is some really, I mean, I have people, actually, I'm not going to dismiss that. We do have people on our group that have lost their own children to suicide where they felt it's injustice. And so many people seek out to try and get that justice when life has taken, and they don't stop until they can correct what took his or their child's life, for instance. And the reason I'm touching this, because I do know, you know, at the end of the day is I'd actually often share particular people's posts that are fighting for to have justice for their child that has been commit suicide out of this world. So that grieving process is hard to put down because they've not got that answer. So they fight for that justice. Does it sap their life, or does it keep them going, knowing they've got something to fight for? Now that's the question only for the person that continues to fight for a voice and to make sure that things don't happen in the way that it took their own child's life. So, you know, I commend people that fight on for a cause so it doesn't happen to somebody else's child. But those people that you see raising awareness because they've lost their children, support them, especially if they're on Facebook, support them in the best possible way you can by sharing their post, because it will prevent somewhere along the line as well. And what you're doing for that person, you're actually helping them through that grieving process also, just because you're sharing their material of their loved ones that are not here anymore. So you're actually helping them because you're acknowledging it. I want to say thank you for everyone that has had an input today. It is a sad thing, but I give thanks that we're alive and we're able to do this today as well. So thank you all for coming. Remember, in the corner we had Jean-Louis Delhomme. It's French. He is the founder and director of JDA Fitness Lifestyles. You can find him on Facebook group. Now, if you need motivation, that's a perfect place to start. There's plenty of people there trying to motivate you. Now, if you look down at the bottom, you have Louise. She's also a member of JDA Lifestyle Fitness. She's also a member of MOM. And we're here in unity to try and bring something to the community and awareness to help you get through. Then you have Nikola Blair. She is all the way from the USA, but it doesn't matter where she is in the world. Therapy takes place just as it is right now. So please do feel free to contact her. Again, Intelligence Service Investigation. He's not just a talker, he's a walker as well. So therefore, any questions you have around that, around those situations, you can find him. Where can you find your website as well, please?
www.intelligenceserviceinvestigations.co.uk.
Very much. And then we have, I have to get this right because it's been embedded in my head 101 times now, and I am take on board what she says. We're going to have retired Dr. ZOLEE right over there. And the reason why she takes that title of ZOLEE is there's no expectations on her when she's delivering her own message about her own emotions. Hold on. And me, I'm Kerry. Whatever I've said here today is about my emotions, what I've gone through. I'm not telling you what to do. They're just ideas that we've all pushed out here. It's up to you. Make those choices for yourself. And I hope they're going to be healthy ones. So all we ask is please do share the awareness, a simple share. Even that, when we ask you to share, when nobody shares, they share the same platform as you. They've watched you. You can see all the views. And then they don't even share that we said share because it will help. It will save someone. And that doesn't happen. You then have to toy with the rejection. And then you say, you know what? I did this for myself today. We shoe up. We try to deliver. And we try to help. We try to give you a solution. And if we've done it. So that's a reward in itself that we shoe up and we tried to help someone with a message today. Whatever you take out of this is entirely up to you. Thank you everybody for coming. Give your best smile because I'm about to pause it.